The 2024 presidential race is turning into one of the closest and most unpredictable elections in modern American history. Donald Trump, the former president, is now pulling ahead of Kamala Harris, the current vice president, in many critical battleground states. Polling reveals that Trump is not only leading in some of these key states, but also holding a slight advantage in the national popular vote. This development is striking, especially considering that Trump hasn't maintained a popular vote lead in his past presidential runs. This shift in numbers is creating a substantial advantage for Trump. Historically, polls have tended to underestimate his support among voters. So while Harris technically has a 0.6 lead in national polling, it might not be enough. If the polling errors from previous cycles repeat themselves, Harris's narrow lead might not hold up, and Trump could gain the upper hand. For comparison, Biden had a 7.2 lead over Trump at this stage in 2020, yet he only ended up winning by 4 by Election Day, illustrating how national polls sometimes overestimate Democratic support. With Election Day just a few weeks away, the window for Harris and the Democrats to shift the momentum is quickly closing. Let's take a deep dive into the current status in each battleground state and examine the dynamics that could define the outcome of this high-stakes race. Starting with Nevada, a state that has consistently leaned Democratic in recent elections. Trump has pulled ahead of Harris by 0.7. This marks a significant shift since Nevada has backed the Democratic candidate in every presidential election since 2004. It was George W. Bush who last managed to win the state for the Republicans. Earlier this year, Harris was leading in Nevada, but Trump has gained substantial ground, turning the state into a true battleground. During the 2020 election, Biden had a 5.3 lead over Trump in Nevada polling at this stage, but he only managed to win by 2.4, revealing a notable polling error. If such a discrepancy exists in 2024, it could give Trump a real chance at flipping Nevada, and as a result, analysts have shifted Nevada's designation from a tilt blue in 2020 to a lean red this cycle. In Arizona, a state that has seen rapid political changes over the past few elections, Trump's lead has grown to 1.6. Trump has come out ahead in 5 of the last 7 polls conducted there, demonstrating his continued appeal in a state that is essential to a Republican victory. Arizona made headlines in 2020 when Biden narrowly won by a 0.3 margin, marking the first Democratic presidential victory in the state since Bill Clinton's win in 1996. Although Democrats were optimistic that Arizona's changing demographics would favor them in future elections, the data now suggests that Arizona could be swinging back to the GOP. This shift has led analysts to reclassify Arizona from lean blue in 2020 to lean red. For 2024, a considerable advantage for Trump's electoral map. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Moving to Colorado and New Mexico, 2 states that Democrats have traditionally relied on for solid support. Harris's lead isn't as strong as Biden's was in 2020. In Colorado, Harris currently has an 11-point advantage, but it's worth noting that this figure comes from a Democratic-affiliated poll, which may not entirely reflect the overall trend. In 2020, Biden held a 13-point lead in Colorado and went on to win the state by a healthy margin. While Colorado is still likely to go to the Democrats, Harris's smaller lead hints at lower voter enthusiasm and potential turnout challenges. Similarly, in New Mexico, Harris is polling 7.7 ahead of Trump, a narrower lead compared to Biden's 12-point advantage at this stage in 2020. Though both states are expected to go Democratic, the reduced margin suggests Harris may struggle to generate the same level of support, which could impact the overall electoral picture. Texas has also emerged as a major focal point for both campaigns. While it has long been a Republican stronghold, recent demographic changes and urban growth have given Democrats hope of turning Texas into a competitive. In 2020, Biden appeared to be closing in. trailing Trump by only 1.1 point in the polls, though Trump eventually widened the gap on Election Day to a 5.6 win. Currently, Trump holds a more comfortable 6-point lead in Texas, reinforcing the state's Republican leaning and bolstering his electoral prospects. Given Texas's 38 electoral votes, this strong lead solidifies Texas's place in the lean or likely red category, a significant asset for Trump's pathway to victory. In the Midwest, the situation varies across states, but the region as a whole seems to be leaning toward Trump. In Minnesota, for instance, where Democrats have traditionally performed well, Harris leads by only 4.7 in polling, a significantly narrower margin than Biden's lead at this time in 2020. 4 years ago, Biden led Trump by nearly 10 points in Minnesota polls, ultimately winning by around 7 points. While Minnesota narrowly voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, the state's political leanings have been less predictable in recent years. With Harris's narrower margin, analysts have adjusted Minnesota's classification from likely blue in 2020 to lean blue this year, making it a more competitive state than expected. Iowa, another important state in the Midwest, seems to be solidly in Trump's favor. In the 2020 race, polls suggested a neck-and-neck contest, with Trump expected to win Iowa by just a single point. Instead, he triumphed by a wide 8-point margin, illustrating a substantial polling error. This year, Trump has a 4-point lead in Iowa polling, and if a similar polling error occurs, he could win by an even larger margin. Consequently, Iowa has moved from a tilt-red category in 2020 to a more secure lean-red status in 2024. Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, while a single electoral vote, offers a small yet interesting counterbalance to the Republican surge in other battlegrounds. Harris is leading by 10 points in this district, a strong improvement compared to Biden's 3.8 win here in 2020. After redistricting, the district has become slightly more Democratic, which explains the stronger support Harris is seeing. Although it's only one electoral vote, it could play a symbolic role for the Democrats in a year where every vote might. Wisconsin, one of the most critical swing states in recent elections, is currently a virtual tie, with Trump holding a paper-thin 0.1 lead. In 2020, Biden led Wisconsin, polling by 8 points, but only won by a slim 0.6 on Election Day, highlighting the potential for polling errors. Wisconsin's status has shifted from likely blue in 2020 to tilt red in 2024, making it a must-win for both candidates. Should Trump capture Wisconsin, it would give him a crucial boost toward winning the Electoral College. In Michigan, Trump is similarly leading by a marginal 0.2. 4 years ago, Biden led by 8 points in Michigan polling, but won by a more modest 2.8 margin. Harris's numbers in Michigan suggest that the Rust Belt, once a reliable Democratic stronghold, is again up for grabs. This change moves Michigan from lean blue in 2020 to tilt red in 2024, underscoring the challenges Harris faces in retaining this state. Ohio, meanwhile, appears even more secure for Trump, with a 7-point lead in the polls. In 2020, polling also showed a close race in Ohio, but Trump ultimately won by 8 points, solidifying the state's republic. As a result, Ohio has shifted from tilt red to likely red for 2024, further reinforcing Trump's advantage in the Midwest. Pennsylvania, another essential state, shows Trump leading by a narrow 0.5. In 2020, Biden won Pennsylvania by 1.2 despite having a much larger polling lead at this point. This time around, Pennsylvania has moved from lean blue to tilt red, emphasizing its toss-up status and potential role as a deciding factor in the race. Florida, a state that has seen consistent shifts toward the GOP, is solidly in Trump's corner with a significant 8.4 lead. This has turned Florida from lean blue in 2020 to likely red in 2024, further signaling the GOP's dominance in the state. Looking at these state-by-state shifts, Trump's path to a possible victory seems clearer. If these trends continue, Trump could capture around 312 electoral votes, flipping the map from Biden's 306-vote win. Harris and the Democrats face a challenging uphill battle in several key states. Given the history of polling inaccuracies, both campaigns will be focusing heavily on mobilizing their bases and persuading undecided voters in the final days of the campaign. The race is now closer than ever, and with the stakes this high, every battleground state is more important than ever. Stay tuned for continued analysis and insights as we follow the latest developments in this high-stakes election.